Everyone's played hide and seek. It's simple. One person counts, the others run and hide, hearts pounding with excitement, waiting to be found. For most people, it's just a memory of childhood. Laughter echoing through backyards, whispers behind closets, the thrill of staying perfectly still. But for me, that game never really ended. It happened one summer night when my friends and I decided to play one last round before school started. The sun had just slipped behind the trees, and the streetlights flickered like they were warning us. We didn't know it then, but something else was watching, something waiting for us to start counting. We thought it was just a game, but when you're hiding in the dark, and you hear someone whisper your name, and you realize everyone else is still hiding, you understand some games should never be played. The last evening of summer always carried a strange kind of sadness, the kind that hung between laughter and silence. The cicadas hummed their endless song as the sun sank behind the houses, bleeding gold into deep violet skies. Liam stood in the middle of his quiet suburban street, hands tucked into the pockets of his gray hoodie, watching his friends gather near the cracked basketball court behind his house. They'd all grown up on this street, riding bikes, chasing ice cream trucks, daring each other to do stupid things. But this was different. The air tonight felt heavy, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. "Come on," Sarah called, smiling wide. "One last game before school starts." Liam raised an eyebrow. "A game of what?" "Hide and seek," she said with a grin. Ethan laughed. "Seriously? We're 16, Sarah. What's next?" "Tag?" "Exactly," she shot back. "That's why it's the last one, you know. To remember." Her words hit something nostalgic in all of them. The others, Maya, Jake, Ethan, and Liam, exchanged looks, then shrugged. Maybe it wasn't such a bad idea. It would be one final memory before life got serious again. They agreed on the rules. 3 houses in any direction, no phones for cheating, and whoever was it had to count by the big oak tree near the streetlight. Simple enough. Jake volunteered first, pressing his hands over his eyes against the rough bark of the tree. 1, 2, 3. He began, his voice echoing faintly into the warm night air. Liam took off running down the street, sneakers slapping softly against the pavement. Porch lights glowed faintly, and distant TVs flickered through living room windows. Everything looked so normal, so safe, that he almost laughed at himself for feeling uneasy. He scanned for a hiding place. The hedges? Too obvious. The neighbor's shed locked. His eyes drifted toward the very end of the block, where the Carter house sat. The old place looked like something out of a ghost story. The fire from years ago had scorched one side of the house, leaving black streaks up the faded siding. The porch sagged, half collapsed, and the windows were boarded up. As kids, they used to dare each other just to touch the front steps. Now standing there in the deep blue of evening, it felt different. The kind of silence that hums in your bones. Perfect hiding spot, he thought. No one would dare look there. Liam crossed the overgrown yard, weeds brushing against his jeans. He tried to ignore how the cicadas had gone quiet, how even the crickets had stopped. He reached the porch, the boards groaning under his sneakers, and glanced back at the street. The others were gone, scattered into the dark. He took a breath, grabbed his phone, and flicked on the flashlight. The beam cut through layers of dust as he pushed the front door open. It creaked like a long exhale, the sound echoing inside the hollow rooms. "Just a quick hide," he whispered. 5 minutes tops. The air inside smelled like wet wood and ash. Wallpaper peeled down the walls like shedding skin. His light caught fragments of old furniture, collapsed and forgotten. He moved deeper, footsteps soft but loud in the emptiness. He found a small room by the stairs, maybe an old study, and slipped into a half-open closet. It was dark, cramped, but perfect. He crouched low, pulling the door nearly shut, phone light dimmed. Outside, faintly, he heard Jake's voice echoing. 13, 14, 15. Liam smiled faintly, then frowned. The voice wasn't quite right. The tone was lower, drawn out like someone imitating Jake but getting the rhythm wrong. His skin prickled. He leaned closer to the door, heart starting to pound. The counting stopped abruptly. Silence then from somewhere upstairs. A soft, deliberate creak. He held his breath, staring at the thin slits of light between the wooden panels of the closet door. Another creak. And another. Slow footsteps, moving across the ceiling, heading straight for the stairs. The house seemed to breathe around him. Each groan of the wooden floorboards felt alive, like the place was stretching after years of silence. Dust floated lazily through the narrow beams of his phone flashlight, catching the air like tiny ghosts. Liam crouched lower inside the closet, knees pressed to his chest, the smell of rot and old wallpaper thick in the air. His heart pounded against his ribs in heavy, uneven thuds. He told himself it was just Jake, maybe trying to scare him. They'd done this kind of thing before, creeping around in the dark to get a reaction. But the sound upstairs didn't match that playful energy. It was too slow, too heavy, too intentional. The steps dragged, pausing between each movement as if whoever, or whatever, was up there was listening. He strained his ears, barely breathing. The silence stretched sharp and cold. Then, another sound. A faint tapping, rhythmic, somewhere above the ceiling. Tap, 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 then a pause. Then again. Tap, tap, tap. Liam's grip tightened on his phone. His flashlight flickered. "Come on," he muttered, shaking it. When the beam steadied again, he caught something through the slats of the closet door. A flicker of movement at the edge of the hallway. A shadow, his breath caught. There wasn't supposed to be anyone in the house. He pressed his eye to the small crack, his pulse roaring in his ears. The narrow hallway beyond the door was soaked in darkness, faintly illuminated by a sliver of moonlight pushing through a broken window. Something moved again. Slow. Too tall. The shape was human, almost, but wrong. It stood facing away from him, body stiff, its head tilted slightly to one side as if it was listening for something. Liam's body went still. He could feel every muscle screaming to run, but fear rooted him in place. Then the figure twitched, an awkward, unnatural jerk as though its joints weren't working right. It turned its head slightly, revealing a pale cheek and the edge of something shiny across its face. Porcelain. The floor creaked. It took a step toward the closet. Liam clamped a hand over his mouth to silence his breathing. The shadow stopped right outside the door. He could hear it now. Breathing. Slow. Deep. Like someone inhaling through cracked glass. Then, a voice. Soft, wrong, too close. Found you. Every hair on his neck stood on end. His vision blurred for a second, the words cutting straight into his bones. He snapped his eyes shut. He wanted to scream, but his voice was gone. When he opened them again, the breathing had stopped. Silence. He waited. 5 seconds. 10. 30. Nothing. Slowly, shaking, he pushed the closet door open an inch. The hallway was empty. "Jake?" he whispered. His voice came out dry, cracked. No answer. He pushed the door wider and stepped into the hallway. The floor groaned beneath him, the sound echoing through the hollow house. The smell of burnt wood hit him again, mixed with something faintly metallic, like rust or blood. He turned toward the stairs, aiming his flashlight up. The light beam quivered slightly from his shaking hand. The stairway stretched upward into darkness. Something whispered from above, too faint to make out. It sounded like laughter, but not the kind that came from joy. It was low, breathy, broken. That was enough. He bolted. Liam sprinted through the hallway, across the front room, and shoved the door open. The rush of night air hit him like cold water. He stumbled onto the porch, gasping, scanning the yard for movement. His phone's flashlight beam caught the street beyond. Empty. No one was there. Not a sound. Even the insects had gone quiet again. He ran until his lungs burned, until the Carter house was just a shadow behind him. He didn't stop until he reached the familiar hum of the streetlight by the oak tree. Chest heaving, sweat cold on his skin. Somewhere far behind him, the front door of the Carter house creaked again. Slowly. Then shut with a soft click, as if something inside had just finished playing its turn. The night air felt colder than before, the kind that carried a stillness too heavy to breathe. Liam stood under the streetlight, chest heaving, heart trying to claw its way out of his chest. Sweat ran down his neck despite the chill. He turned in every direction. The neighborhood that once felt familiar now looked wrong. The houses were dark, lifeless silhouettes. Even the crickets refused to sing. Then through the silence and a voice, "Liam! Over here." He spun around and saw Ethan and Maya running toward him, flashlight slicing through the dark. The beam hit his eyes and he flinched. "Where the hell did you go?" Ethan panted, stopping a few feet away. Liam could barely find his voice. "The house," There's something inside that house. Maya frowned. What are you talking about? It's not empty, he said. Someone's in there. Tall, pale, I don't know what I saw, but it whispered to me. Ethan looked over his shoulder toward the Carter house. Its silhouette loomed against the night sky, a crooked shadow at the end of the street. Sarah and Jake went that way about 10 minutes ago, he said. They were looking for you. Liam froze. What? Why would they? Because you disappeared, Maya interrupted, her voice trembling. You said you were hiding, then you just didn't come out. Liam's stomach sank. We need to go get them. Ethan nodded, lifting his flashlight. The three of them started down the cracked sidewalk toward the Carter house. The beam of light shook as Ethan's hand trembled. Halfway there, a noise stopped them cold. A laugh. Soft, distant, but familiar. Sarah's laugh. It came from inside the house. Liam's throat went dry. That's her. Maya called out, Sarah! Jake, are you in there? For a moment, silence. Then a faint voice drifted out from the open doorway. Jake's voice. Guys, come find us. Liam's stomach twisted. The voice sounded flat, wrong, like it was being played through an old radio, slightly distorted, stretched at the edges. Ethan took a cautious step forward. Jake, no response, then faintly again, come find us. It was the same phrase, the same tone. Word for word, Liam grabbed Ethan's arm. That's not them, he said firmly. Ethan's jaw tightened. How do you know? Liam swallowed hard. Because that's exactly what it said to me. In the closet. Before it disappeared, the words hung in the air like smoke. A sudden crash echoed from inside the house. Something breaking, followed by a scream. Sarah, Maya shouted, sprinting toward the porch. Ethan ran after her. Liam hesitated for only a second before following, every nerve screaming for him to stop. They burst through the front door. The flashlight beams jerked wildly across the ruined interior. Dust and shadows danced along the walls. Sarah, Maya shouted again. Jake! A faint sob answered from upstairs. Help me. Liam's pulse thundered in his ears. He glanced toward the staircase, the same one he'd heard the footsteps on earlier. Something glimmered on the top step. His light caught it, a phone. Sarah's. The screen was cracked, faintly glowing. He climbed the first step slowly, then stopped. The air grew thick, heavy. And then, a shape moved in the darkness above, not running, not walking, crawling. It was fast, scuttling along the ceiling like a spider, its limbs bending at impossible angles. The flashlight beam hit it for only a second, just enough for Liam to see pale skin stretched too thin, long fingers scraping the wood, and a face hidden behind that same porcelain mask. It paused, its head snapping toward him with a crack. Found you? Liam stumbled backward, nearly falling. Ethan grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the door. They bolted out into the yard, Maya right behind them. The front door slammed shut on its own. The sound echoed through the night like a gunshot. For a moment they stood there, shaking, staring at the dark windows. Then Ethan whispered, voice breaking. Where's Sarah? Liam looked down at the phone still clutched in his hand. Sarah's phone, the screen flickering with a single message draft. Help me. It's not Jake. The message was never sent. For several long minutes, none of them spoke. The night pressed down on them like a living thing, thick, heavy, listening. Maya stood trembling, staring at the boarded windows of the Carter house. Ethan was pacing in tight circles, muttering curses under his breath. Liam just stood there, gripping Sarah's phone so tightly his knuckles went white. On the cracked screen, the unsent message pulsed faintly. Help me. It's not Jake. Finally, Maya broke the silence. We can't just leave her, she said, voice raw. We have to go back in. Ethan spun on her. Did you see that thing? It was crawling on the ceiling like... He stopped himself, unable to finish. Liam's eyes didn't move from the house. It's using their voices, he said quietly. That's how it hides. That's how it plays, Maya frowned. Plays? He turned toward them. Hide and seek. It's part of the game. It wants us to come find them. The word sent a chill through all of them. The street seemed darker now, the wind colder. Somewhere in the distance, a metal gate creaked. Ethan kicked at the gravel. We should call someone. The cops, anyone. Liam shook his head. No one will believe us. By the time they get here. He looked down at the phone again. It might be too late. Maya took a deep breath. Then we go in, together, we stick close. We don't separate no matter what. Liam met her eyes and nodded. Ethan hesitated and then finally muttered, "Fine, but the second anything moves, we run." They stepped back toward the Carter house. The porch groaned beneath their weight. Liam aimed his phone flashlight through the doorway. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing dusty furniture and peeling wallpaper. Every step they took echoed. Not like normal footsteps, but muffled as if the house itself was swallowing the sound. They moved through the living room, flashlights trembling in their hands. The air smelled like old rot and something metallic. Blood, faint but unmistakable. "Sarah?" Maya called softly. "Jake?" No answer. They reached the staircase. The wooden steps creaked under their shoes. Halfway up, Ethan froze. "Do you hear that?" A faint hum, like a child humming a lullaby, drifted down from above. Slow, repetitive, Liam's skin crawled. "That's not Sarah." They reached the landing. The hallway was narrow, lined with doors. Faded family photos hung crooked on the walls, smiling faces covered in dust. But as Liam's light passed over one of the frames, he stopped. The people in the photo, a family of 4, had their faces scratched out. Every single one. Behind him, Maya whispered, "Liam." He turned. She was pointing toward the last door on the left. It was open just a crack, and something was written on it in what looked like chalk. "Your turn to hide." Liam swallowed hard. He nudged the door open. The beam of his light hit a small bedroom, and at first it looked empty. Then he saw them, Sarah and Jake, or what looked like them, standing motionless in the corner, faces hidden in the shadows. Their heads were tilted downward, their arms hanging limply at their sides. "Sarah?" Maya whispered. No response. Liam took one careful step forward. "It's me." "It's Liam." Both figures twitched. Slowly they raised their heads, but their eyes were wrong. Black, hollow, glistening like tar. Their mouths opened in unison, and a voice that wasn't theirs came out. "Found you." The door slammed shut behind them. The flashlight flickered violently. Something cold brushed Liam's neck. He spun around, catching a glimpse of the mask. That same porcelain face cracked down the middle, now right behind Ethan. "Run," Liam shouted. They crashed through the door, sprinting down the hallway as it warped and bent around them, the walls pulsing as if alive. The humming grew louder, mixed with whispers. Dozens of voices overlapping, laughing, chanting the same phrase over and over. "Hide and seek." "Hide and seek?" They burst out the front door, gasping for air. But when Liam looked back, the house was gone. In its place was only an empty lot overgrown with weeds. The Carter house had vanished. The 3 of them stood frozen, gasping for air, staring at the empty field where the Carter house had been moments ago. The night was silent again, no wind, no hum, no movement. Just an open, overgrown lot bathed in pale moonlight. Ethan stumbled backward, shaking his head. No. That's impossible. We were just in there." Maya clutched her arms. "It's gone," she whispered. "It's gone." Liam stared, his breath shallow. He still had Sarah's phone in his hand. The screen flickered faintly like it was trying to turn on. Then, a message appeared on its own. "Don't stop looking." Maya saw it and stepped closer. "Liam, what does that mean?" He didn't answer. His flashlight beam shook across the empty lot, and that's when he noticed it. In the middle of the field, half buried in the weeds, stood the old wooden door. Just the door, no frame, no house. It was the same one from the Carter hallway, the one that said, "Your turn to hide." Ethan swore under his breath. "We're not going near that." But Liam was already walking forward. Something about the door felt magnetic. Wrong, yet familiar. The air around it shimmered faintly like heat on asphalt. "Liam, stop," Maya called. He turned, eyes hollow. "Sarah's still in there." Maya's voice cracked. "You don't know that." He looked down at the phone. Another message had appeared. "One must stay." The words hit him like a blow. The truth sank in slowly, heavily. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a game. A cruel, endless game that demanded balance. Someone had to take the seeker's place. Liam looked back at his friends, at their pale, terrified faces, and felt something inside him break. "If it wants someone to play," he whispered, "then I'll play." Before they could react, he reached for the door handle. "Liam!" Maya screamed. The door creaked open, revealing only blackness. A wind howled out from it, freezing and hollow. The whispers returned louder now, circling him. Hide and seek. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing Liam's arm, but the ground beneath them split, reality folding like paper. A blinding white light engulfed everything, and then silence. When Maya and Ethan woke up, they were lying in the middle of the empty lot. The sun was rising, painting the sky with pink and gold. The air was calm still. The door was gone. Liam? Maya called weakly. No answer. Ethan staggered to his feet, looking around. Where is he? The lot was empty, except for something glinting near the grass. Maya picked it up. Liam's phone. The screen was cracked, but it flickered once before dying. For a long moment, they stood there in silence. Then, from somewhere far away, faint, almost like a memory, came the sound of laughter. Children's laughter. 3 months later. The neighborhood finally tore down what was left of the Carter property. Construction workers clearing the lot claimed to hear knocking from under the soil, but no one believed them. Maya returned once, near sunset. She stood at the edge of the field, holding Liam's old phone. When she turned it on, a single message appeared on the screen. No number, no signal. Still hiding. She felt tears well up. You kept your promise, she whispered. A cold wind brushed her hair, and then from the distance, faint but unmistakable, she heard his voice. Found you. The wind carried it away, leaving the world quiet again. Maya smiled through her tears. It wasn't comfort exactly, but something close, because deep down she knew Liam hadn't been taken. He'd stayed behind so no one else would. He'd turned the game against itself, and somewhere, in that endless dark where echoes lived, a single light still moved. A boy in a gray hoodie, dark jeans and sneakers holding his phone flashlight, walking between worlds, searching, watching, protecting. The game was still being played, but this time it was on his terms.